Time.
Nap time. Yeah, nap time. Hi, I'm Capi from Always in Stitches in Noblesville, Indiana, and this is the continuing series of Capi's a Bag. I'm Capi. We're making bags. This month, we're making the carry-along bag, which is a Sallie tomato pattern. Each month, we've featured some kind of a skill that we've tried to learn. Last month, we worked with cork, which the cork thing has really just taken off in making bags and stuff, and it's a real good accent piece. If you missed the cork thing, go back and watch the cork thing, because we used cork to make our project. This particular project, I think she shows it on the pattern with cork, but it also allows you to use vinyl, so or faux leather, whatever you want to call it. And so that's what we're going to work with this month. I want you to see the differences in leathers and faux leathers and vinyl, and you know what your opportunities are in that realm. There are lots of choices available. I would suggest don't be afraid. And I'm going to show you. So this was when we sat down, Peter said, "What's that stuff with holes in it?" Well, I made a bag out of this particular color, and I didn't like the bag.
Oh.
So I just ripped it up. But this vinyl is not inexpensive, this faux vinyl. And so when I ripped it up, I'm like, you know, there's enough piece there to make something else. So
yeah, a little card holder.
Yeah. So I hold on to the scraps because one never knows when you're going to need a little piece of this. And, you know, being the hoarders that we are. But there are 3 bags available, 3 different sizes. And I've already made the smallest one. And then I made it here out of a faux vinyl shiny project. This is kind of mermaid. I don't remember who this is from now. But the reason I'm making it out of 3 different colors.
Did you say mermaid hide?
Well, it is like mermaid hide. I mean, if I was a mermaid and somebody
it's
took
mermaid leather.
It is. It's like mermaid.
Well, I've heard of shark skin.
Yeah. This is very thin. And I wanted you to see, like, the thickness of that. I don't even know how many it is, millimeters, but it's tiny thin.
It's awesome.
This is probably 4 times the thickness. So it's going to behave differently than this. And this is going to need more support than this. And then another piece, because I'm going to make 3 of these, this is another vinyl that has another texture. You can even get actual leather that's, gosh, almost 1/8 of an inch thick, that's very heavy. So when you're working with faux leather, they're not all created equal. That's the point of that story. They're very different in texture and weight. So be aware of that when using them. You might want to consider what batting to use. So for instance, this that was super thin, when I put it together, I used that soft and stable that's like the foam that's kind of heavy to make the littlest one. And I choose to make the littlest one. Isn't that fun? Oops.
That is the coolest thing.
Isn't it fun?
And that foam gives it quite a different feel. I like that.
It gives it some stability because this is super thin and very flimsy. So that's why I used it. Now, look closely at your pattern when you make it, because this is the right way, this is the wrong way.
Oh, come on, Cappy.
I know. So she gives you the dimensions of the little piece that you cut, and I'm like, well, it seems to me. Now, if you look at it, I mean, obviously, I just put the zipper on the wrong side.
I actually like the tall one.
I know the tall one's not all bad.
I think the tall one's really cool.
There's things you can put in there. So it's, it was a design opportunity. But I will tell you, when looking at this pattern, she doesn't tell you which is the height and which is the depth, and that's a little, or the width, the height and the width.
Right.
And so I got it wrong.
You got a custom set there.
I do. I mean, so I'm thinking this is cool because, you could put something, I don't know, my inhaler would fit in there, or, I don't know. Anyway, so I ended up with an extra one. But just watch your dimensions and kind of think it through. Basically, the longer dimension goes this way. I put it the right way. See, the longer dimension goes this way. The shorter dimension goes this way. So when you're looking at the pattern, we have the pattern available if you want to purchase it. You can still join this club. We've had people after the fact. We ran this. It's already 5 months in, but you can still play catch up because everything's out there. So anyway, this is the smallest one. Today we're going to make the medium-sized one. And the reason I chose this aqua and navy is this is my lining fabric. Isn't that luscious?
Ooh, look at that.
My goal with this program was to use everything out of my stash. And so I had this, and I was like, well, this will be fun. I'll make 3 sizes of bags. So this will be the big one, this will be the medium one, and this will be the small one.
Oh,
so they
cool.
kind of color coordinate. I've got zippers. You know, I'm going to use navy on those and kind of mix and match my zippers. I'm going to mix and match my zipper heads so that they all are kind of fun. And that's just because I can. You can make all 3 of these bags exactly the same, fabric, vinyl, whatever you want to use. But because, you know, I thought it was fun, we would use different sizes. The big one I'll make when I teach the class, but for today we're going to make the medium size one. So I have my vinyl here, my faux vinyl.
Your vegan leather.
My vegan leather, yeah, my vegan leather. And my cat fur is on it. And this is a fusible batting, or fusible fleece, sometimes it's called. The trick is fusing to this is virtually impossible. If you iron this, I can maybe touch it with a hot iron from this side. You absolutely cannot iron from this side, and there's a pebbling effect in this. If I were to iron it, it's going to melt that all out. So rather than iron that on, I could use, you know what I'm going to use? I bet you know what I'm going to use.
Rubber cement.
I could use rubber cement.
Wait, that's zipper tape.
This is my zipper tape. So I know the center of the bag isn't going to take anything, and it just needs to stabilize it a little bit. So I'm just going to put a chunk of that on there. You could use 505 spray. There's lots of ways you can get this to stick.
Oh yeah, 505.
505 would work. I've got a can of 505 spray, which is a spray adhesive that's delightful. I use it all the time for stuff. But because you can't really iron this, I'm just going to do that. And I'm still going to put the sticky side down just to keep it consistent. But now I can square that up and just lay that there. And it's going to stabilize it. It's just a square. It's not really going anywhere. So I don't have to worry too much about it. But I am going to use I'm telling you, I buy this like by the case now. I can't. So my cats must have laid on these. They've been sitting cut, ready to go for a few days. Okay. And I'm not getting this in where I'm going to sew or anything. Again, this is just, and I ran that one straight and this one diagonal. It's just to stabilize it. That's all I'm doing here, folks. It's not an exact science. And honestly, this it's like a felt board almost. It kind of sticks to itself anyway. But that's just going to stabilize my 2 pieces that I cut to the dimensions. She gives you dimensions for all 3 different sizes. So there's those, and there's my lining. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is, and she suggests to top stitch, coordinating banding. She suggests to top stitch it around here. Here's my problem with top stitching with vinyl. Or and she says this is optional. What she's suggesting is you go around here and you sew this to stabilize it. Every time I sew into a faux vinyl or even leather or anything, it creates a hole. It doesn't, like with fabric, you just push the fibers out of the way. But it creates a hole. So if I go around and sew this and then come back and sew that seam again, I've really made a weak point in this. So I prefer not to do that just because I want to only poke as many holes in this that I have to. Then this is a perfect example. So this is one that I've used before, and every place I sewed before when this was put together, there's a little hole in there. So if I go back and sew again, it just makes it that much weaker. So I'm not going to do that, which is actually the first step she tells you. So we're going to skip that. The next thing she tells you is to make your gussets. Now, if you've watched our videos for a little while, you've already seen me do gussets. So you know that they give you a nice little dimension of what to cut your gusset size. And because my gusset won't show on the side I'm going to cut it on, so I've got my friction pin, and I'm drawing on the wrong side of this project, so it doesn't make any difference. I've talked to you, excuse me, about the friction pins. I don't like them in places where I'm going to see them again, or potentially they're exposed, because they will take the color out of fabric. You can iron it away, but then the color, the dye in the fabric goes away too. And so now I'm going to take my scissors. And I'll cut those little corners out. Pretty simple. I've had people ask, do you have to use special things to cut the vinyl? Typically, no. It cuts
just not the scissors that we used on the last
yeah, exactly.
sewing episode.
I finally got smart and brought some decent scissors in, folks. I know. I've been using some nasty scissors in here. Because you know what happens is I pack everything up to come in here and I just grab what I find. There we go. So that's no good. And I'm just going to cut all 4 corners out. Now that's to make my gussets, okay? If you don't know what a gusset is, go back. I think the first video we did gussets.
First video, maybe?
Yeah. Excuse me. I've been talking too much today. We already did another video this morning, so. And I tell you, I'm being real careful. I don't want to cut on into here, on up to there. Because then when I make my gusset, it leaves a weak point. So I really only want to cut just to that point. So you have to kind of be careful not to go any farther. I'd rather undercut that and fix it than overcut it and have to, well, if I overcut it, I'm going to have to just start over because it ain't going to work. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so now I have my gussets in. So she has you do that, and then you just set those aside. Then you prepare your zipper. Now, I told you I'm mixing things up, so on the aqua I use the navy. On this navy one, I'm going to use aqua, and I'm going to use a navy pole. Again, she doesn't tell you exactly how long to cut your zippers. So whatever your dimension is across the top here, I want you to make the zipper itself an inch shorter. So let me get my dimension on that so that I know for sure that I measure it right. We need to come to my house and do these in my sewing room.
Where everything's all
Where
set
everything's
up.
all organized and I know what I'm doing. Okay, so
how many kitty bombs would we end up with?
Oh yeah,
the cats are in the background, like
they'd be all over us.
Doing video bombs.
They would not leave us alone. Okay, so I'm taking the dimension across the top here. When you buy the pattern, you'll know what that is. I'm going to take an inch off of that. So I'm going to cut my zipper to that length. And I'm actually going to leave a little extra. Well, so let me say it this way. I'm going to cut my zipper exactly the length that it tells me. But because I changed the zipper heads, I know there's an inch there that I'm going to also cut off later. So I'm cutting this off. I know when you do that, sometimes it freaks people out. I've got to take this little nub out because I'm going to change the zipper head. Because I like to have my own zipper heads. You can leave the zipper head that's on there if you'd like. I am also using the heavier bag zippers. These are not your standard just little thin zippers. I like a heavier bag zipper than the thin zippers. So the dimensions are a little deeper for this than what it calls for. So I took that tab out, cut this off, and now I probably have the length zipper I need. Let me see. Yep. Okay. So then, in order to change my zipper tab, what you do, and this has been on several of my videos, but it always seems to help people to see it. I cut a little bit of the tab off, and I cut some of the teeth off on this side. And then, to put my zipper tab on, I put it, there's a back flat side, and then there's the top that the toggle comes off of. I slide that up on one side and then push that down in there and it catches, and then I hold on to the two bottoms and there you go. Lickety split, new zipper. Okay, so now I have this really pretty zipper head. Isn't that going to be pretty on there? Look how that pops.
Gorgeous.
Love navy and teal together. Okay, so now I'm going to remeasure my zipper and get her to the right length. Yep, she's just about dead on. So I'm going to trim off this little nub where I cut out part of it. There we go. And I want the distance from here to here to be 1 inch shorter than what this top is, and that's just about right at where we are. The other thing that I've cut out in the instructions are zipper tabs. So when you look at this one, let's look at this one. There's a little tab here that's been sewn onto the end of the zipper, and that's what the zipper tabs are. Because I'm using a thicker zipper than what she recommends in here, I have to cut my tab a little bigger in order to cover that end. So it's really simple. I just measure that distance for one size, and it actually ends up being exactly the same as far as the one distance is still the same and the other one is just a little shorter. So normally this is a 1-inch zipper. My zipper measures 1.5. So that tells you what you need to do to adjust your measurement. And see, I have this little scrap piece here. This is why you don't get rid of these little chunky pieces, because you always are needing these little odds and ends, okay? So I'm going to cut this, not with that, but with this. Now see, I'm using my rotary cutter. Not a problem. Not a problem at all to use my rotary cutter to cut this stuff. It loves, it doesn't, it's no problem. So I'm going to increase this to this size. Pretty sure that's what I did it. Yes. All right. This actually ends up being 1.5-inch square is what it ends up being, which is not the dimension she tells you. So just so you know. Something's going on in the background. Sounds like they're tearing down the walls. So there's a 1.5-inch square.
It's a disgruntled employee.
I guess. Oh my gosh. It may not even pick up on the camera, but there's some loud noises in the background. Okay, 1.5-inch squares. Now, she shows you one way to do this. I'm going to show you another. And this is just from having worked with a lot of vinyl stuff over the years. I got to find my tape. Here's my tape. Where's my tape? Where's my stylus? That's going to be my mantra. When I bury it, I put it on my tombstone. Okay, so I'm going to put my zipper tape. You know, me and my zipper tape, we're best friends. On around and around the back. Like that. Because with vinyl, you can't use pins. You can't use safety pins or straight pins of any kind. They'll get you in trouble. Because once you make a hole in the vinyl, the hole is there. And then I'm going to peel that off. There we go. So now that's sticky. And now what I do is I take and line this up with the end, right side to right side. Okay. Oops, I connected it to the... Don't connect it to that. And then I roll this over and I fold that in again and I go there. See how I did this? Now, I know I can do that with this thickness and even this thin, but when you get in some of the thicker ones, this is too much bulk. That's pretty thick. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. I'm not going to go any thicker than that on this stuff.
You're not going to go 8?
I'm not going to go 8. Now, what I could do, if I wanted to, because this is a finished edge.
Yeah.
Let me show you option 2.
I like option 2.
You like option 2?
Yeah, it worked out better for me when I did clamshell.
Yes, and it has to do with your machine. Now this isn't even as thick as what you were doing when you had clamshell. You had full out leather. I think. I'm pretty sure. All right, so then get it to unstick, stick and unstick. There we go. The other option is to lay this piece on here like this. And then you have to go about halfway, like that, and fold it under like that. And with the thickness of this, that might be a better choice. The goal is you just want to seal the end of that, okay? Let's go with this method because this is kind of thick. So we'll peel this off. And I'm just going to wrap the end of the zipper. And that's all I'm doing. I'm wrapping the end of the zipper because the end of the zipper does not get pulled into that seam and you don't want that exposed. So that's why you're doing this. Okay? Well, that's kind of pretty. Gosh, I love that navy with that teal.
I do too. Now I just need some pink somewhere.
Some pink, yeah, exactly.
Some pink with the teal.
There we go. Just put my scissors here. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch across this on each end. Okay, so we'll go to the sewing machine. I have in the sewing machine a 40 weight thread and a size 14 needle, because sewing through these layers of thicknesses, you need that density. I could put a walking foot on. This machine doesn't need a walking foot, but some would. And my stitch length, I'll just change it from what it was, is 3.0 because it's top stitching. Most of this project, when I sew, I'm going to sew at 3.0 because of the density. I don't need snug, tight stitches. It still is going to hold it. So I'm just going to do a little bit of top stitching. It's a real quick across there. Didn't take much. Ooh, look at that contrast.
Oh, I love that mint green thread.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Now I could certainly use navy, you know, and
no.
I know, but if you're not confident in your sewing skills, now
this is a good time to become confident.
Yes, I didn't
love it.
lock the stitches at the beginning or the end because I know that's going to end up in a seam. Okay. So here we go. Let's do it again.
Love it.
And I'm eyeballing, so I know. Where's my stylus? Here we go. I know when I look at my foot that if I sew with this kind of right on that edge, that I'm going to get that positioned right where I want it. So know your machine. There we go. Love that color. Isn't that pretty? Isn't that going to look professional when you get that down in there? See how nice that looks?
Very.
Yeah, yeah. And because this is vinyl, I don't have to have a curved under edge. What I showed you before would have worked well with the thinner vinyl, or if you don't have a finished edge. But that's a finished edge.
Lenine's going to have to put that in the fair.
Yeah, so she steals our stuff and puts it in the fair. Okay, so the next direction is to make a strap connector. So the strap connector, I am not going to put on this inside bag. Because my vision for these 3 bags, because it has 3 bags, 1, 2, 3. I don't want a snap connector on every single one of these, this wristlet thing. I'm saying this wrong. I don't want the wristlet on every one. I'm going to make one wristlet, and I'm putting in these little hooks, which is this right here. I'm putting one of these in each bag so I can attach the wristlet to any one of the 3. Because my thought is I'm going to put these 2 bags inside the big bag. So I'm not going to make the wristlet, but I am going to make this little connector. And what size piece do I need for that? 1.5 by 2. So here I am back to my scraps again. I'll bring it over here so I don't have to chase the camera back and forth. So I'm going to cut a little piece. See, look at this little piece. I'm telling you, you don't get rid of anything, right? Oh, it's just the right size. I love it when it works. I'm just going to chomp a little chunk off of that. And then we'll just sew this. There we go. Here we go. Okay. And this piece, again, because it's finished, now I could, you know, do that kind of thing, but all I really need to do is just sew that like that. And, oh, I hope I brought my D-ring. Did I bring my D-ring? I'm going to put a D-ring in that. Here we go. I should have a D-ring right here. I'm going to go out and get a D-ring. Okay, let me sew this, and then I'll get the D-ring. So what I'm going to do now is sew these edges down. Now, whenever I'm sewing anything, see my old stitches in there, they're going to be hidden. That's from where I repurposed it. I'm just going to repurpose this. It's just going to go in the seam. Whenever I'm sewing a piece of vinyl that I know this side is the exposed side, I sew that first. Don't sew the fold first because it'll be wonky. Sew the open side first. And I'm just going to go right down that side. I don't have to lock the stitch because I'm going to be sewing this into a seam. So I go down one side. And I go down the other side. There we go. And then this is going to fold like that with a D-ring going through it. that edge is exposed. So when I sew this on, I'm going to put that part down so that the curved edge is up at the top, okay? This will be fine. The wear and tear on it will be no problem. But now I'm going to run to the sales floor and get a D-ring. So I'll be right back. Okay, so the pattern calls for a little D-ring to be on here. Or actually, you've also got an option to put like a wristlet. I put a D-ring on them because I wanted to be able to attach the wristlet to whatever size I had. Forgot to bring the D-ring into practice, but I found something better. So this is a swivel, narrow strap hardware. It's actually a swivel set. And this swivels, and this can go over. So instead of putting on a D-ring, I'm going to put this, which means then I could attach the bags together. I could make like a little set that way. So I'm kind of, you know, don't you love when a mistake becomes like a design opportunity?
Yes.
And that's exactly what this is. So I'm going to use that swivel, which was in the hardware that we had out on the sales floor. D-rings were getting in. For some reason, we had like a mass exodus on D-rings. But yeah, see how it calls for like these D-rings to be put on there so that you can put a wristlet on each one. I don't want 3 wristlets on all these bags. I want to be able to put them inside each other. But this way, now I could connect like this bag to this one and that bag to the outside one. I'm jonesing on this. I'm pretty stoked. I'm excited. Okay, so let me show you how this sews on. She shows you putting the key fob on there. Again, you can put whatever you want hanging off the side of your bag. Or you could leave nothing. You could not put one on at all if you wanted to. And she shows you how far down to put this. It's 1 inch down, which makes sense with everything you're going to put on the top. I'm actually going to go like 1.5 inches just because I really want to be sure it doesn't get in with my zipper and all the other stuff. And there's enough space here to do that. So I'm going to mark that spot again with my friction pin that, you know, and I'm going to put that, and I did mark on the front, I'm going to mark on the back. I'm going to put that right there. Now this is going to be a chunk to sew over. I'm, 2, 4, 5 layers. In this vinyl, I can get away with it. In some vinyls, I can't. Okay, but we're going to place that right there. I'm going to put the thing all the way over here. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to change to, Peter, the box is right behind you there. I'm going to change this foot to my zipper foot, which is probably not a bad choice anyway. I'm going to have to be there anyway. So here's a trick when sewing bags. This is my zipper foot. So I want to show you the 2 feet together. This foot is really wide, and getting into places like this, see how that's going to want to ride up on that? But my zipper foot will allow me to get right down on that and press and not catch the hook or the ring or whatever it is I'm sewing over. And so I will, a lot of times when sewing bags and have a tight place to get into, I will use my zipper foot. The other thing my zipper foot allows, I'll put this under so you can see, my needle can go straight down the middle, but it can also go on either side. So not only can I get like in the middle of this piece, but if I want to sew on this side of it, I can get really far in because the zipper foot allows for that. So I'm going to place this, where's my line? See, I put my line there, I'm putting the upper edge of this on that. And you know, I think I'm going to, you know what I'm going to put in there? You know what I'm going to put in there? A little piece of my tape.
Swivel tape.
Just to kind of hold everybody in place. Just a little piece of tape in there. That double face tape stuff. Another opportunity. That's why when this class started, I told everybody, I said, buy a reel of this and invest in the stock. No. The other thing I'm going to be cognizant of, this is the raw edge, so I want that to the bottom of my bag because I want the finished edge to be up. Just, you know, because I can do that. And it'll help with the wear and tear. So there that is, okay? We're going to do that. And you know what? We're going to put
zipper tape.
Zipper tape again. Just a little piece of zipper tape to hold it. It's just got more uses than zipper tape, I'm telling you. I'm amazed how many times I grab this out of my sewing stuff. I'm like, oh, I'll just use some tape. Get it to stick. That's the other thing. On the vinyl, sometimes it doesn't like to stick. Alright, so I've zipper taped that to no end. There we go. And I just want that right on that edge. And I've unthreaded my needle. So let's put a little clamp on there to hold that so we don't shift it all. There she is. Meanwhile, back at the sewing machine, a little threading. If you have a needle threader, learn to use it, because someday you'll be glad you have it. Got lots of people who have their needle threader and like, well, I've never used it. It's like, really? Okay, here we go. Now this is going to be thick to sew through, so I'm going to go slow because my machine, and she's a pretty good little gal, she can handle it, but naturally it's going to want to grind through this. And it's one of these things where I take a step and I may have to go back out and do it again. I think I broke my thread. I did. It broke my thread, and that was because the bobbin was whack. There we go. That's why you want to use a needle threader, because you don't want to have to do that. All right, here we go again. Okay, so I did that slow. I did it one step at a time, and it secured it. That's what I wanted. Good enough for government. Now, when I get ready to sew that seam, I'm going to have 2, 4, 6 layers there. It's going to be a chunk. It's going to be a little bit of a chunk, but we'll get through it. We'll just have to go slow. And I'm going to make sure my stitch length is long enough. Okay, so there's my little, I'm kind of excited about this design change. I really am, because that'll allow this bag to hook onto things, whatever I want to hook it to. Now I'm going to take my zipper that I prepared, wherever she went. Oh, here she is. And we're going to sew it on this top edge. Now, the reason why we shortened this, clean this up a little bit, some stringy strings. The reason that we made the zipper 1 inch shorter than what the top edge of the bag is, because we don't want to catch this zipper in the side seam, okay? I don't want to sew through the zipper, and if I do a 1/4 inch seam, see how that's going to sew on either side of that. So I don't want to sew through my zipper. And this is kind of free form from that seam. It lines up with it. So this is one of those things where I'm going to be real careful, and I'm going to make sure I get this positioned right. Oh, you know what else I didn't do? See how this extends beyond the edge of the zipper? I'm going to cut that off too. Just makes it easier to line it up. There we go. That side's good. You can see it better here. See how that's longer than that? We're going to square that off. I don't want that hanging out, just because it makes it harder to line it up. I'm going to check those off. Oh, funny little loopy-doos. Okay, cool. So now then, I'm going to measure this in, and I think it comes in about 1/2 inch, because it was 1 inch shorter, right? So it should be 1/2 inch on each side-ish. Looks like it's going to come out being about 3/8, which is still fine. It's more than 1/4. Because when I make my 1/4 inch seam up that side, then it won't catch that. Same thing here. 3/8. Yeah, so it ended up being 3/8 on each side. And that's just the width of the vinyl that did that. Okay. So see, I want that to stay there. I'm going to sew with my zipper closed, because I'm going to start here. And I'm going to use my zipper foot. That's why we put it on there. Good old zipper foot. Now, I'm going to start sewing at the edge of this right here. I am going to lock this stitch, because this is the only thing holding this in. I'm not going to sew through that seam. So where previously I've not locked these stitches at the beginning or the end, I am going to lock this stitch. So I'm going to stay there and sew. And the good news is I can just do it that way. Now it's lock that stitch. Now we're going to go. Slow down a little bit here, girl. And then I'm lining the edge of the zipper up with the edge of the top of the bag. And I'm sewing, I want to be at least kind of in the middle. Between here and this edge, I'm in the middle of the two. probably closer to this edge out here than that edge. You want to be sure you leave enough room for your zipper head. If I sew right up to that, my zipper head won't move. I have to sew away from that edge a little bit. These handbag zippers don't have a real clear line like the other ones do, but I know if I'm about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge, I'm good. My good old stylist, man, she's my best friend. And I can leave the zipper head closed until I get up to it, and then I'll open it so it's not in my way. So now I'm just going to take and pull that zipper head back there so that it's not in my way when I'm sewing here. That's locking it for me there. Okay, so now I have the zipper in that side. Perfect. See, that's going to be my top. Gosh, I love that navy with that teal. All right, the next step she gives to you is to top stitch. No, sorry, wrong. The next step she gives to you is to put your lining on. So here's my lining, 2 pieces. Pull that one layer. And now I put this over this. Okay? And I'm going to just set that down. Put that, clip it. You know, it's funny, I don't pin when I quilt, but when I make bags, I clip. All right. Now I do have to start all the way out here. Still have my zipper foot on my machine. I don't have to lock this seam because it will be stitched over again in another seam. But I do have to take it kind of slow because there's a big bump in there that is the top of that zipper. There we go. Once I get past that bump, then I can move along. Checking where my zipper head's at. And I'm just guiding the fabric with this stylus, kind of making sure everybody's staying in line with each other. There we go. So now I have the lining and one side sewn together on the zipper. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is fold the lining over there so that the lining goes this way and this seam comes, the layer that's sewn into the zipper comes that way. And this is where you got to kind of work that leather a little bit. I got to kind of press it in so the seam, the edge is laying this way. So if I was pressing a quilt, my seam is flattened that way. Let me turn it over and I'll show you. So it's like this. See how that is? Like that. And now I'm going to top stitch that spot. And this is going to be so pretty. Top stitching is what really sets your project apart. And I'm probably even going to push this just a little bit to kind of give it almost like a piping look. But the key is making sure that the bag lining is this way and the bag top is that way and my seam is pressed that way. Again, I'm going to keep the zipper foot on. Now, and I'm probably going to move my needle over. So I'm sewing on this side of the zipper foot to kind of help get as close to that edge as I can. And I'm having to take it one step at a time until it gets through that. Now this is that part I was talking about. It's going to be very thick. So I'm going to just take these one step at a time. And I'm moving the stitch length. now I should be good because I'm over that initial bump of going into that. There we go. Now I'm staying about 1/4 of an inch away now, 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the zipper. And I'm making sure that seam is folded under. So I'm catching the edge of that seam is what I'm catching. Yeah. And I could put more tape in there, I suppose, if I wanted to, but I've just learned you just kind of have to work it as you go. That's one of the things. This vinyl will stretch, so you kind of want to be careful not to tug and pull on it too much because you can end up with a stretch you don't like there. And, you know, coming over the hump this way, it's fine. It's going into it that it doesn't like. Oh, look at that. Look at that nice straight top stitch.
That is money right there.
Isn't that beautiful?
That is money.
And it just looks so professional, especially with the type stitching here. I mean, it just really brings it up. So now I'm going to repeat the same process on the other side. What that does then is that lets this lay down flat. Now I can't sew it both pieces down because the way the seams have to go together. So you're kind of like, well, why don't I just pull them both this way and then top stitch it? It doesn't work because when you sew your seams, it won't sew together right. Okay, so now I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. I've done both sides now exactly the same. Put the front onto the zipper, put the lining onto the zipper, pulled the lining back, did the top stitching, did the same thing on the other side, pulled the lining back, did the top stitching, and we're just about ready to sew the sides up. I mean, it's that quick. But what I didn't do was cut the little notches out of my lining to make the gusset. So I'm going to do that real fast. And, you know, it doesn't matter that I didn't do them before. They can be done really any time, just so they get done. And I just put the two lining bottoms together because I can cut both layers at once. And just make sure everybody's lined up exactly. Take my good old friction pin because this is something that isn't going to show. And draw my line. Take my trusty flamingo scissors and cut that square out. Now somebody somewhere is going to save that little piece and make a block. Not me. Here we go again. Make my little... And gussets can be whatever size you want. If you wanted this to be wider, you could certainly make it. Whatever that is, whatever size square you cut out, your gusset ends up being twice as big. So if I cut a 1-inch square, I'm going to get a 2-inch gusset. If I cut a 3-inch square, I'm going to get a 6-inch gusset. So, you know, that gives you some design opportunities. Because remember, one of the things I want you to do with these classes is I want you to make it your own. I want you to use these patterns as outlines, and then you decide how to go on from there. Okay, so here I have it. Lining is in, top is on, zipper is in. I've got space on either end with the zipper based on the she doesn't tell you the size of the zipper, but I'm telling you make it 1 inch shorter than the side that you sew it in on. Now, she recommends using a zipper foot for this next step, which is going to be the part of sewing it together. And this is kind of, this is the part that gets a little interesting. Because what I want to do is I want to take the lining and sew it together, and I want to take the top and sew it together. And I don't want to sew through here. So what you have to do, because if I sew through there, I get this kind of weird, it's hard to sew there. It's easier to start sewing from here and go down, and from here and go down, than to go all the way around that. And because this piece, you kind of want it to go that way when you sew, and then you want it to go that way when you sew, that little loose piece in there, because it just hangs loose between those two pieces. So if I sew all the way through that, then this piece gets scrunched. So it seems a little counterintuitive, but trust me, this is how you want to do it. And I think she has you stop. She actually has you sew the lining at 3/8 inch seam allowance and the outside bag at 1/4 inch seam allowance, with the idea that it makes this just a scooch smaller so it'll fit inside there. I get it. That makes sense to me. I'm probably not going to do that. I'm still going to leave my stitch length at 3.0 because I'm sewing through so many layers, at least on the vinyl part. So what I want to do is I'm going to use my clips and I'm going to line this up because this stuff likes to slip and slide. So I'm going to clamp this across this bottom here just to hold everybody in place. I cannot use pins. I could potentially use zipper tape in here, but I don't really need to. It's not going to be that far sewn. But what I want to do is be sure that this part of the zipper end sticks up that way, okay? And I'm going to sew from here down. And this is where she's saying take a 1/4 inch seam on the outside and 3/8 of an inch on the inside. And again, my zipper foot's my friend. So here we go. Now this is going to be, because this has the little clasp part right there, this is going to be thick to sew through. So when I get there, it's going to be a slow process. The other thing is you want to be sure your zipper is at least halfway open, because that's how you're going to pull it through, is through that zipper. So be sure your zipper's open, because if it's closed, it's a real pain to get it open. All right, so here we go. Again, I'm not going to lock that seam because it's going to be caught in the gusset. She's being cranky. When it starts doing that, you just take 1 stitch at a time until it kind of frees itself up. And sometimes that has to do with the feed dogs cannot get a hold of the batting and the vinyl and push through it. There she goes. And typically it's at thick spaces or when you start and stop. Okay, so I'm getting close to where the clasp is, so I want to make sure that that swivel hook is all the way out this way, that it's not going to be back and get in my foot. And I'm going to kind of, again, make sure everybody's in place, get it as flat as I can. And I'm going to go real slow coming into this piece here, because see how my foot's lifting up? That's when you break a needle, because the foot is bending like this. The needle's trying to come straight down in it, and it catches the foot. So I'm going to go real slow here until it levels out. And here's the other thing. When my feed dogs lift up to pull the fabric, I just kind of gently push along with the feed dogs. That way I don't lose my stitch length. It's just, they need that little extra to get through there. Now this is real thick. I'm just going to tell you, if your machine needle breaks, this is where it's going to happen. Yeah, we're pushing the limit on this one. There, now I'm going back down. Same problem. The foot is now bending like this. The needle wants to go straight down. They've got things called a little hump jumper that you can put under there to support it when you do this. There we go. Okay, now I've got, if you look and I open it up, see that I've pulled that all the way this way. That's the stop for that zipper. And I'm going to sew as far up to this edge as I possibly can. Okay, and I'm going to stop. So that's sticking this way. And I did it. It's a very snug 1/4 inch seam. Now we're going to go from this direction. I'm going to do the same thing, just what I just did. And you'll see down here it kind of cooperates. It's the batting that's catching. So it's catching a little bit. I'm just going to take 1 stitch at a time till she catches up with me. There she goes. Now same thing. I'm pulling that strap forward, and we're going to sew right up to this edge. She's getting a little bumpy. It's just a lot of thickness to go through there. Go slow. That's the best thing I can tell you. Go slow. And if you break a needle, you just break a needle and put another one in. Okay, so I've sewn those sides. The bottom on the exterior, I sew that completely closed. You're not going to do that on the inside, but I'm going to do it here. There she goes. Sometimes those first few steps are just a little sticky. There's not a whole lot of feed dogs. If you look, I've only got the feed dogs on this side of the foot catching this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 feed dogs not even moving this, so it's not got a lot of push through it. And when I've used a walking foot, the problem with the walking foot is you still only have half of the walking foot. So it's still unbalanced. I like the zipper foot better. Okay, so I've sewn across here and the sides. Now I'm going to sew here. Do the same thing on the bottom, on the interior lining. Kind of pin it, or not pin it. Now I could pin this because it's fabric and it wouldn't care. But I got my clips handy, so I'm going to use my clips. I've got clips, I think they're everywhere. They end up being all over the house because they're just so handy for so many things. And what I'm mainly trying to line up are these gusset squares to make sure they stay true. And the other thing is you want it side to side right. I'm excited to see how this one turns out. I love navy. Navy's one of my favorite colors. Virginia's
She's
peeking
almost
around the
done
corner.
with her bag, Virginia.
Virginia's peeking around the corner. This is one of her favorites
Keep
too.
her,
She's
that way you can keep her.
She's making it for me.
I'm making it for Virginia.
And you can keep your cookies in it.
Okay,
Right.
so she does recommend to do that at 3/8. So I am going to come in a little bit so that the lining is just basically 1/8 of an inch smaller than the exterior. So it will help it sew together better. And look how that just glides right through because it's fabric. It's not all that vinyl. But don't be afraid of vinyl. Honestly, don't be afraid of it. It's not hard. Now, I'm having to go in there and push that end on the zipper tape back through to the other side. So it's sticking out on this side now instead of that side. So I can sew all the way up that seam. There we go. And this will be an interesting little to get all the way up there because it sticks up. Oh, there we go. There was a needle. Too far. Go right there. Let's go right there. Oh, she really wants me to stop.
Emergency stop.
Emergency stop, which means we got to turn her back off and back on. She's got to reset herself. There she goes. I heard her. All right, now she's going to lock that stitch. So the reason it did that is because there's so much bulk in this corner right here. Okay? But I still got my seam sewn. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. When you do it all in fabric, you can sew through that, but with that bulk there, it's just a little hard. Let's make sure this is sticking through the other way. There we go. And I could make this all in cloth. I could make it all in canvas. I could, skip the vinyl altogether if I really wanted to. But I like the vinyl. It's really fun because when people see vinyl things, they're like, you actually made that? It's like, yeah. Took a little extra effort, but I got it done. And that maybe you want to take and hand sew this just a tight to make sure it stays. There we go. Now, the bottom of the lining, I'm not going to sew completely closed because that's where we're going to pull it through. So with the bottom of the lining, I'm going to go just about, I'm going to leave about 3 inches open here in the middle. And I do lock that stitch because it gets some pull from trying to pull everything through there. So here we go again. All right. Now I'm ready to make my gussets. We've made gussets before, but just to review, that's when you take this little box corner and I open it up all the way and I join the two seams. And I make like a triangle almost. And I will usually send, and this is a quilting thing, send one side, one seam this way and one seam that way, just so they nest together. And I want this to lay as flat as possible. So that's how we kind of lay this out. And that's your gusset. What that does is it makes this right here. Okay? See, there's the seam and there's the seam. And it just makes it this way. And I'm just going to sew right across that. And the more out you put these, the better it's going to be. There we go. All right. And this I do definitely lock. Definitely lock that, because it really gets some serious wear and tear. Hold it in. Here we go. Let's go in a little deeper. And I'm going to lock that at the end too, because this is kind of the only place that holds that gusset together. Nothing else comes into that gusset. So that's going to make a square end is what that's going to do. And then we're going to do it on this end. Same thing. There it is. Same thing again. And this, like I said, if your gussets at all confuse you, there's more than one way to make a gusset. This is the way I like to do it. I like cutting the square out and sewing it in without. You can sew it with the fabric in there too, still, without cutting out a square. I don't like that way as well, but I like having it so I know where I'm sewing. What's going on here? I think my needle is tired. That's the other thing. Having sewn through as much as I have here, my needle is maybe getting dull because it's just really gone through some layers. So if you start having trouble with your needle, you may need to replace your needle. This type of sewing is really hard on a sewing machine needle. All right, both gussets are in the lining with a hole in the middle. That's where we're going to pull it through. Now I do the same thing here. Now, I will caution you, when working with the vinyl, it really wants to slip. So be sure you get it really secure. And this, I'm probably going to try and do open. Now, this is going to be a little tough on the machine, because if I fold that over, see, that's a lot of layers. But if I open it, it's a little bit easier on the machine. So we'll see. This will be a good test. We'll find out what this thing's made of. Matter of fact, I think before I do that, I'm going to change the needle. We are going to put a new needle in this girl because she's already choking a little bit on that, and I don't want to break a needle. Let me show you a trick with changing a needle. So when I take my old needle out, this is my old dull needle. I take my new needle that I'm going to put in and I push it up in there. Well, then it's kind of slippery and hard to hold. So I take my old needle, put it in the eye of my new needle to hold it in place while I tighten it down. And then throw away the old needle. And then crank that little puppy one time so she's good and tight. All right, fresh needle. Eliminating a problem, right? Mm. We hope. All right. There we go. Now I've still got the zipper foot on. That's fine. I think I'll leave it on sewing this gusset because I want to get as close as I can. So we're going to try and open that up a little bit. It's a fairly small seam. We'll see what we get. All right, so I've got those out. I am going to put the other foot back on. You know why? Because this foot has a feature on it. There's a little spring back here. I can push that in and it holds that foot flat. regardless of what it's sewing over. And I really kind of want to use that.
Just about done.
There.
Oh my God. Yeah. Have to get this. Well,
Oh yeah, that needle was definitely dull. I'm gonna open that up a little bit to save some thicknesses. She's sewing better. She was
Much
a dull needle.
better.
She was a dull needle. So pay attention, you know, when you start having symptoms that seem wrong. Thread needle tension. Start with your thread. Make sure you're using the right thread. It's threaded right. Then check your needle if you've had your needle in there for a while. 8 hours of sewing is plenty on a needle, unless you're working with this vinyl, and then sometimes it takes less than that to wear it out. And that needle had been in here a while, so if I'd have been really doing like I should have, doing what I preach instead of what I do. Was it do what I say, not what I do? Isn't that what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the one my mom always said. Well, just because I do it doesn't mean you can do it. And then I got to be a grown-up and was going to be so excited about doing those things, and I'm not so much now. It's not as much fun as I thought it was. Being a grown-up is overrated. I'll go back to playing with dolls and climbing on monkey bars any day. But I don't think that's going to happen for me. Yeah, she kind of hesitated over that hump between where all those layers are. That's okay, just slow it down a little bit, push through it. Okay, at this point we are finished with the sewing part. Now we have to do the pull it through the hole part.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that. So sometimes, you know, I said 3 inches, that's a little short of that. So we're going to open her up a little bit. The good news is you can always sew this back together, and you will. I mean, you have to. So I'm going to open this up just a scooch more. The main thing is I need that sewn so I can do my gussets. But now that my gussets are in, I can go back in and fix that. So we're going to make that hole just a little bigger for the sake of time. If I was home by myself, I might fiddle with it till I get it right. But that's just a matter of just pulling this through that hole. The vinyl is a little harder to get through because it's not as flexible. But you can't damage it. You know, you just wad it up and it unwads and it doesn't wrinkle, which is kind of nice. So here we go. That was pretty good. I guess I could have left the hole that size. All right, now I'm going to grab my flamingo pusher. You notice we have a flamingo pusher. And I'm going to push these points out from where the gussets are in. And make sure that's nice and flat. Because, you know, if I have to, I can rip it out. So there's a gusset. See, I'm putting that pointer is right inside there. And there's a gusset, and I'm putting the pointer right inside there, pushing that out really good and firm. Now, in a perfect world, those seams would be directly lined up. They're pretty darn close, so I'm not going to be sad about that. That's why I like to nest them. Kind of helps with that process. Poke that out, put that. Ooh, now those did line up. Those are good. Push this out. Push this corner up there. See, now you see what I'm talking about. That sticks up. There we go. Ooh. Okay. Same thing with my lining. I'm going to go in and I'm going to push that gusset out. Now, I could do hand sewing on this seam. I'm not doing the hand sew. I'll make an English paper piece quilt.
I got a hand sewer right behind me.
I know you do, but I ain't doing it.
Virginia could hand sew it.
I ain't doing it. You know why? Because it's inside the bag.
Well, Virginia's going to just take it anyway.
Nobody is going to see this seam inside the bag. So
Virginia, when she gives you her bag, you can just hand sew it.
Just hand sew it?
I can't
Hand
give
sew
it to
it.
her. She wants every sample we make in the store. Oh, Virginia's
Oh,
always like,
that's mine. I know that's mine. That's my color.
I'm telling y'all.
Just put your name on
You need
it.
to come in and meet Virginia so she can find out how much fun she is to work with. We got the best staff anywhere. I'm telling you, we are blessed. Okay, so I'm just going to fold that in together like that, and I'm just going to sew that seam closed. There we go. And my little stylus or whatever is going to help me get that nice and flat. Well, that's kind of fluffy. I'm going to press that just to get it nice and flat because it's not laying smooth. So let me show you what I'm doing. This is pretty easy. That seam, see, it's kind of laying whopper jaw, so I'm just going to fold that in and press it. So I've got enough fabric there to really get a bite of when I sew that. And same thing on the other side. There we go. It just makes that go together a little smoother. There we go. Now I can just sew across that all the way and it'll be closed. And you know, if you want to put something inside and hide it in there, I don't know, your cookies maybe, your candy.
Easter egg.
Hide it inside the lining. There you go.
Love note.
Love note.
Money.
And Build-A-Bear, they put little hearts and stuff.
Gold.
You could put a gold. Yeah, put your gold, put your
Silver.
Your whatever you're smuggling. I don't want to know. Don't tell me.
Your zipper tape.
Your zipper tape, yeah. You know, I wouldn't put it past me to sew it in there because I'm always trying to find my zipper tape or my stylus.
You know when they do? You know when they do surgeries, they sew people back up, and they leave stuff inside.
I've heard of that. Can you imagine? That's like a big old lawsuit, isn't it?
You can do the same thing with your bag. Sew it up, sew it up, and sew something inside it.
Hide things in my bag. All right. So I just sew that shut. And because of the design of this pattern, I mean, you're not even going to see that. Nobody will know it's there, but you and me because you watched me do it. All right. There she is. I am going to trim my threads so it's nice and smooth so you don't see that. That's just the lining. Nobody's going to see the bottom of that bag. Sets down inside it. Look at this bag. I'm just telling you. She's pretty. What do you think? Now, here's the cool part. Because I put that swivel hook, look what I can do. Look what I can do. Looky there. And when I put the little wrist thing, when I get the wrist thing made, I could put both those and carry it around like that with the wrist thing. Wouldn't that be cool? And then see how this piece works? This is what I was telling you. That just kind of smooth like that. It's nice.
It's pretty cool. It turned out really good.
It did turn out nice, didn't it? And look at that lining. Ooh, that's just a pop of fun, isn't it? But see, my thought is I'm going to put that one inside of this one. And then this one inside of the big one. And then the big one...
So they're like nesting bags.
They're like nesting bags. They're like babushka. What
nesting dolls.
What are the
I don't know
Russian
what they're
nesting
called.
Dolls? I always call them babushka dolls. But
Russian dolls. They
but
nest.
The big bag is going to be in this color. So when you have all three, you'll have that and this and this. Isn't that going to be fun? And of course, this will get a navy zipper. So they'll all go together. And on this bag, I'm going to put, and you've seen me do this before, the little handmade label. So it'll say handmade on there. It will also have the wrist strap made out of the same fabric. So I could put the wrist strap on any of these bags if I wanted to. And then additionally, I'm actually going to put feet. I'm going to put bag feet on the bottom of this biggest one.
Yeah, that's how you really set it apart.
Yeah, so that'll be the big one will be the
Do you like bag feet on your bags, Virginia?
That'd be fine.
Yeah, yeah. So the big one, I've got to get some more of this because this is not quite enough. I need 2 sheets. The big one is like really big. So that's your bag. I think she's very cute. I love it. Just, watch your directions. So you get going the right way so you don't end up with a tall skinny. Or maybe you want a tall skinny one. I don't know. Maybe that makes you happy. Maybe you want a tall skinny one. Who cares? You make it your way. You make it what makes you happy. That's the goal. I'm loving this. This might be my new go on a cruise bag.
Matches your outfit.
I know. Well, and I know why I couldn't find it because I put it inside.
You're looking for the little bag and you stuck it in there.
But gosh, you could get your cell phone in there, you could get your sunglasses in there, you could get, 2 or 3 things in there. And it'd be just the right size. Look at that bottom, how pretty that is. It's nice.
That's nice.
Nice and smooth. Loving this project. I hope you enjoyed watching us put this together. If you've got questions, you can email me. Peter will put that in the notes. And I hope you make some of these. Post them on our Always in Stitches Insiders Facebook page if you make one. Let us see how you create your own project. I can see using quilted fabric in this, English paper piecing, maybe put an embroidery on this. Take it to your, we do embroidery work here, so you can have somebody's monogram put on here, the word bride, if you've got a bride. Peter suggested, he and my husband are pretty good chums when it comes to cigar smoking and tobacco smoking in pipes, and this would make a nice little pipe bag for a man. So, you know, not just for ladies. This could be a great project for men too to have to carry around. So, I'm loving this a whole lot. Thanks for watching. I hope to look forward to seeing you next month with our next project, which I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I will give you a little hint. We've pretty much learned all the techniques that I've wanted you to learn. Going forward, we're going to be making bags. I mean, really making bags instead of small projects. So we've learned the skills we need, and now we're going to dig into making some serious bags. So have a great stitching day. Bye.